Test, test, test. Test, test. Test, test, test. Test, test. Test, test, test. I'll be in a couple minutes, obviously. I'm looking at some stuff. So this is going to be kind of interesting or not. But see if I can organize some stuff on here so you guys can see it soon. Unfortunately, I can't see the chat at the moment, so if anybody's tipping, thank you. I'm having trouble getting the software to work like it used to for me. So let's see what we got here. So Big Tree Tech sent me some stuff, so we're gonna basically be looking at it. It's not really a tutorial video, is more me trying stuff out and seeing if it works. Right now I'm just energizing cameras and stuff, so that's why everything looks kind of funky. So we're almost ready to start. Just making sure I've got all the tools I need in place here. So I'm probably not going to mess around with cameras today, just because. But there'll be the main camera on. But let me see who's in here so far. It looks like we got a couple of people. Let me fix the title, because apparently that might help people.
Good afternoon.
Let's see, this is the Big Tree Tech Manta E3EZ. I'm getting the name wrong. Oh, it's right there. E. Let's see, E3EZ version 1 live examination. That ought to help. Let's see if that shows up correctly. Okay, the title's fixed at least. So essentially all I'm doing is doing a box opening on this and testing out a couple of things, probably steppers, probably first of all loading an OS, which probably means that I need an SD card. So let me open one of these up. Looks like we're rolling down on the minutes here. Go. Finally get an SD card. And let's see how we are on time. Okay, only a couple seconds. So I think there's an 8-second delay, so I have to wait until it counts down. And then hopefully get this right with the software. Okay, so today we're going to look at the Manta E3EZ, I believe is what it's called. Let me just open it up here. And I'm coming into this cold, and allegedly you can use this inside a Ender 3 no problem. That's what I was told. So what we're going to do is we're going to try out a couple of different things here. So obviously I have the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4. I also have another one. They both have Wi-Fi. This one has eMMC, which means that it has onboard memory that's like ROM, or it's like a drive, we'll say. I don't want to give the exact definition of the name. Then they sent me a new one of the CM1 modules. Let me see if I can open this up real quick. CB1 is actually what it is. And the CB1 is essentially the same thing, just their design of it. So the trick normally with this is to have the antenna point out to the edge of the board. So the antenna here, here, and here are all in the same places. So it's probably 180 degrees. So it's probably going to be mounted this way. But obviously I haven't used this board yet. And it just came in the mail from Big Tree Tech as a sample. They also sent me a set of cooling fins that you can put on top. This will wick away the heat. That'll go on top of these units if you were to use it. They probably want you to use it for the CB1 especially, because it probably is warmer than normal. But I also use a fan to keep it cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the manual in a second and see what we can learn from that. So let's go over to the desktop. Let me just make sure the desktop's actually showing up here. There we go. And so I already have it open. You can find it over here by going to repositories, then typing Manta. And this is the actual folder that I'm in. You can actually download it by clicking here and saying download zip and then extract it, which I've already done. So right now I'm looking at the manual. Now there's issues with the manual where it sometimes closes on you, but I'm not going to go over too much of the functionality. I'm just going to basically focus on what is currently some of the things I want to do, such as loading the actual operating system. And for that, we're probably going to need to use an SD card for the first two that I try. And that first one that I'm actually going to try is probably the CB1 module, and it's version 1.1 or 1.2. Or let me look at it for a second and see. It says on it, obviously you can't see what I'm looking at, it says 2.2 is the actual version. So that's the spin version of the hardware. So let's scroll down and see if we can find it. So CB1 would probably be in here someplace. Doesn't look like they included it, but I'm assuming that it works with this. So they talk about the CM4 Lite. That's with the SD card. The eMMC is without. But there's also CB1, which is down here that I obviously didn't see right away. So let's see if we can jump to it. I doubt we can. So let's try control. Nope, won't let me jump. So let's see if we can scroll down to it. I have no clue which page number I'm on, but I can pretty much get up. There we go. Page just went by. So 22. So it's telling us to use Balana Etcher. We're probably not going to do that. We'll use the Raspberry Pi version. And let's see. When using CB1, you can only download and install provided by Big Tree Tech. So it gives a location on Big Tree Tech, and it's the CB1 releases. So let's go back over to this folder, go back to the main folder, and we're going to type CB1. And I'm guessing it's this one. It could be the other one because it says kernel in it. But let's see what we got here. So latest image. It says to click right here, and that looks like the version that's latest because it says latest. So we're actually going to be doing one of these three. So let's see what we got here. The biggest one looks like the best possibility. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to download it. It says it's going to take a couple minutes, but I know that on my computer it's somewhat quick. Obviously, I can't see your comments during live chat today because I'm having trouble with it. So if anybody's tipping or anything like that, I can't see it, but I'm eternally grateful. But I might be able to see who's in the actual chat or in the actual video through analytics. So I'll take a quick look, see if I can see the analytics. So it looks like there's 8 people that might be in here at the moment. That's kind of cool. But as you can see, we're waiting for this download to complete. So I'm just trying to find filler so you don't think I'm just sitting around doing nothing. And let me see if I can see anything about messages, because for some reason the new interface for Restream is different. So the actual chat I can't see yet. So that's awesome. That, and it's showing me a week's worth of chats instead of today's. They used to have a link in here where I could open up a chat. Apparently I can't find it. Let me click over here, maybe I can see it. So let's see, edit destination, no. It says my link is good. Wants me to upgrade to Restream, which I don't really want to do. Stream video file. Let's see. Record only. Start up with. That's awesome. Wonder why they don't give me that easy little link they used to. So if I go to events, that wants me to schedule, storage, recordings. Doesn't say anything about chat. Looks like the download's about 2 minutes out still. Let's see, chat messages. So obviously I'm not able to see the chat at the moment, which is just awesome. But like I said, if you're tipping, that's great. If not, You know, that's the way it goes. But as you can see, we're almost done downloading. So let's see. Wow, it looks like an add a team member, but I still can't see chat. What did they do to this? So I guess I'm going to give up on trying to figure out what's going on with Restream for the moment, and we'll concentrate on the actual build. Now we're going to be using Klipper, and there's a couple things you need to understand. The actual configuration, you can find it over here. So the configuration will be located in here, hopefully, if it's been added. So we're looking for the Manta E3EZ configuration. And as you can see, we can't see it. We only see these two Mantas. So what that means is we're going to have to go find it. So if we go over to, let me back out of here, to the main folder under Klipper, you can see there's two configurations. It looks like there's one for the Ender 3, and then there's a generic Big Tree Tech Manta E3EZ. So both are valid probably, but we're going to start with this one because this way it'll give us a clue of what we're working with. So as you can see, this is the most important line that we're looking for, our processor, and then it says that it's 8 kilobytes, I believe, for the bootloader, and the crystal is 8 megahertz. This will make more sense later on, but that's important because if we go to the Klipper folder over here, we don't have the actual firmware in this folder, so we're going to have to build it. So that's going to be interesting. Now that we've got the download downloaded, I'm actually going to need to open it. So I'm going to try, pardon me, Raspberry Pi Imager. I'm going to have to start it here. Hopefully you can see it in a second. So this is going to be inside a folder, but we've got to go over to the desktop for a second. And so let me bring you over there so you can see what I'm talking about. So on the desktop, I have an 8 gigabit drive right here. So I'm going to pop this out and I'm going to pop it into this reader and put it in the computer. So you may hear a beep. Then we're going to go back over to the computer and we're going to click on Choose OS. And in this case, we're going to do Use Custom. We're going to have to go to the Downloads file, which I probably was just on. There we go. And this is what we just downloaded. Hopefully it's the right image. So I'm going to click Open. And then I'm going to click on Storage. And it's going to be the 8 gigabit drive. And I'm going to say Write. But just so you know, on some configurations, you can actually set up your information. So in this case, these might not be valid. So we're going to close out of that and we're just going to write. So it's going to warn you and then it's going to write. Now obviously this is going to take probably about 5 minutes. So we're going to investigate a little further. So I'm going to go over to here and show you Klipper again. So we're going to back out of here and I'm going to show you that there's actually install directions right here for installation. We're probably not going to follow all these steps, or I'm going to do slightly different steps because I use different software usually. But as you can see, there's probably not going to be this step that we're going to need to do. These will all be pre-installed, hopefully. If not, we'll deal with it when we get to it. But for now, we'll stick with what we're doing and using their image. Now, I can't guarantee if this is going to work. I think there's a high probability that it will. But we'll find that out after we're done imaging. Obviously, it's only 39% right now. But some of the interesting things you'll need are configuration reference. So inside here, it's going to tell you to set your MCU. Your MCU can't be set until you actually have firmware that it can read. And so what we're going to need to do is actually prepare the board. So I'm going to go over and do that right now. So on the desk, we're going to have to install the board correctly. So before we do that, we're going to check the manual because I don't want to screw this up. Because if we install it backwards, it's not going to run very well. So we're going to scroll up and see if we can see it. I know this is going to be kind of fast. I'm just skimming through here. But I need to see an image of how it's installed. So as you can see, it's not installed yet. So it's going to talk about the steppers. There we go. There's an image of the actual board for the CB1 installed. And what we're looking for is the antenna. And it says the antenna's over here. Now I don't fully trust that yet. So what I'm going to do, now they also bolted it in, which I normally don't do, but that obviously with the heatsink you can do that. So I'm going to see if I can find another image to confirm that, and it's with the Raspberry Pi. And I just want to know where the antenna is, because the antenna being over on the left side seems kind of weird. Obviously they're talking about the camera installed there. So they show it again, which, you know, maybe they're correct. It's just weird having the antenna on the inside of the board rather than the outside on other boards. And I can't go any further, so I guess we're gonna have to give up on that. But they're gonna talk about their Wi-Fi. This part, as you can see, this is gonna be your SSID or name of your Wi-Fi router. And this is gonna be the password to get on your router. Obviously, I'm not gonna show you this on screen. I'm going to pull it to a screen that you cannot see so that I can set it. And it looks like I just finished loading the firmware. So let's take a look here. So it says it's done. So we'll have to pop it out and pop it back in. So I'm going to remove this and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to pull the card, place it back on the computer, and then I'm going to go to my desktop again. I'm going to open up this. Hang on, I got to get it so that you can see it. I'm going to probably put it on downloads so that it looks normal. And you can see that it's this right here. So inside of here, I'm just feeling around, but I'm guessing system config is probably a likely candidate for what we're going to have to modify. And then there's board environments, which I'm going to stay away from for the moment. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to open this in Notepad++, and I'll bring it over so you can see it in 2 seconds. So the edits are going to be these two, or possibly these two, because the last time I did this, I did just the one and it didn't connect to the network. So I'm going to try changing both of these for now, but maybe what I'll do is I'll do these first two and I'll comment them out so you can't see them. And if it does work, then we won't have to do these two. So we'll start with these and see what happens. So in order to do that, I have to find my network name. So I'm going to do this off screen so you can't see it. So it's going to take me a second to do this. And hopefully I can figure out what my username and password are for the network without guessing too much. So that file is now modified right here. So we're going to pop that out So what I'm going to have to do is go back to the actual desktop and show you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to pop out the drive, and we're going to look for an SD card reader on here because I don't know where it is. So it looks like it's right here, and that's probably for, well, there's two of them, so that makes it confusing. So if we look for silkscreen, we don't see any, but we do see SOC card, which is real descriptive. So my guess is that it's possibly this one, but it could be this one. So let's go and see what we can see in the actual directions. So I'm gonna go back over to the desktop for a second, and we're gonna have fun with this one. So let's see, we're gonna find in this folder hardware. We'll look at the pins file, and of course the pins file doesn't come up very good, so I have another image of it over here, and it's not labeled. It does say MCU card, so I'm guessing it's this one, because MCU is actually your CPU in this case being controlled. So let's make an educated guess that it's actually this one. So let's minimize that. We'll go back over to the desktop, and we'll try that. So we're going to place it right in here. So next we have to have the antenna side, I guess this way. So we have to align these with these, and hopefully if we do this right, the holes line up. So it's kind of a tight fit. So I'm going to push down, click it into place, and that appears to have the holes lined up in all four places. So normally you place your heat sink, I believe, right here, and then use the bolts to go through it. Hopefully it doesn't get too hot while I'm showing you this. So I'm going to leave that off, but we need the antenna. So the antenna will connect to the board right over here, which makes me nervous because it's in the center of the board. So I'm going to have fun trying to get this in place, because apparently my fingers are bigger than I thought. Okay, that's in place. So I'm going to place something under the board to keep it from sliding around on me. This is something I normally do so that you guys don't have to watch the board move around and get dizzy, or watch me get dizzy trying to follow the board. So let's place this right about here and make sure that that's nice and solid. Now we're gonna have to power this board, and I'm gonna have to clean up my desk a little because I don't want to damage anything. So I'm gonna slide these away. I'm gonna place a little bit of sticky stuff here to hopefully keep the antenna out in a nice distance. Now to power the board, there are two ways to do it. There's USB power, and then there's power to the power supply. I want to avoid this one right now because I don't want to run voltage through the board and accidentally cook anything by accident, but there's a USB that usually enables it. So let's see if I have something to plug in first that will connect to it, which I'm guessing I don't, but give me a second to see if there's a cable. There's two different USBs on it, and I think I have either one. It's just I don't know if I have them in front of me. So give me a second to sort through my equipment and find the actual connector. I'm guessing I don't have it right in front of me. So let me search in my drawer. Hoping it's a USB type connector for I might have a power cable that will work, but I'm gonna have to look up what it is. So it might go right over in here if it's the right size. So I'm going to have to check to see what we've got here. So let's go back over to the desktop and let me pull up that image. So the image that you can see right here, it's going to either be this, which says something about VBus, which is not what we're looking for, but we want to know what this connector is, and it says RP, which means possibly Raspberry Pi, and that says HDMI. So my guess is it's this right here. So I actually have a power supply that I can use on this that I think is for the Raspberry Pi. But let me see if I've got an actual cable. So obviously I gotta dig. Well, it's looking like I'm gonna have to use the power supply. Unless I can find an actual USB cable. Okay, we're going with the power supply. So let's go back over to the desktop. I'm going to plug in the power supply in 2 seconds. And let's see if the board actually lights up, which I doubt it will right away. There might be one more step. So plugging it in, we have power. So I'm going to hook up an actual screen and see if we can see something. But I don't know if I actually have the actual correct cable connection for it because it's one of those special ones. So that's not going to work. So let's see if I have the other HDMI that I can connect to it, and then maybe we can watch it. So it looks like I do have that special cable. I think. Nope. I have another one someplace. Let's see, this one's a converter. Okay, that works. Let me move this over as I drop stuff and plug this in. Now let me see if I can find the video feed on it, if there is one. So give me 2 seconds here to screw around with this. Display capture. I'm gonna have to add another video here. Let's see, camera. Add an existing. Try 2. Let's see. Apparently I'm not seeing it yet. Oh, maybe. That's awesome. So I'm not seeing it yet. So maybe it's this one. Oh well, guess we're not doing the camera thing today. So let me take that one out. And let me see if I have a different one around here. No, looks like I don't have it, so we'll have to skip that and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is, in a second, I'm going to find the web address if it exists. So I need to go over to my router, which I'm not going to show you my exploration of my router. But essentially what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to see if I see it on the network. And apparently I don't see my own router yet, so this is going to be good times. There it is. Let me see if I can see what's connected to it. So I'm basically going to connected devices, and I'm going to log in and see what's connected. And hopefully the other stuff that I have had connected days ago won't show up. And then we will know what's on it. And I know this is extremely boring to watch from a distance, but unfortunately there are certain things I don't want to show you, like my network. And of course, my network is great at logging in, so it asks for double and triple authentication, so this is good times. Any minute now, I'm waiting on a message to my phone saying the network has a new device. And for some reason, maybe because I'm streaming, everything's taking a lot longer. Okay, so there's an unknown device. Let me try taking a look at that real quick here. And apparently it's not working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if there's a USB type setting. So I'm going to have to close both these down for a second. Bring you back over to the desktop. This, by the way, is the outline for the CM4 modules and explains what hardware is on it, by the way. So you can see that it's broken out by categories here. The eMMC on mine will have a certain number that equates to this number. If it's got a 0, it means that there's no eMMC. If it's got an 8 or 16 or 32, it means that it's 8 gigabits, 16 gigabits, or 32 gigabits. Then RAM, of course, is the next number. So I'll show you a box real quick so you can see what I'm talking about, and this might make some sense. So if I go over to the desktop for a second, what I'm referring to right now is on the Raspberry Pi box. You can see that my CM4 module, being this one, has, for the first set of digits, the 10 or 1 is actually the Wi-Fi, which is right here. Then the RAM, which I believe is right over in here. And then the eMMC, which is 8 gigabits, is right here. Just so you understand where I'm coming from on that. It's kind of weird. Anyways, back to getting off the tangent. We're going to have to look for the actual information in the manual. So there might be a jumper that we need to set to power this board, but I don't know what the jumper is yet, and there's lots of jumpers. So the jumper I'm thinking is this one. And I'm looking for some kind of reference to it. Or we can just power the board. And that means that we got to look at these. So that's motor power, which is M power. That's a hot end. That's a hot end. DC in and then heat bed. So I'm guessing it's these two. So what I'm going to do is mark the red for positive so I don't screw this up. And I'll show you, this is a habit that I've gotten into where I try and avoid frying a board by plugging things in incorrectly by marking it. So let's go over to the board real quick so you can see what I'm thinking. So on the board, that's your voltage, positive, and that's your ground. So the reason I'm saying that is to avoid doing damage to the board. So I'm going to unplug the power for the board for the moment, or at least I thought I did. Took a second for it to discharge. I'm then going to get the power cable for the board. And as you can see, I've already put ferrule connectors on it for safety. This is so I don't cook the board by accident. And then I need to grab an actual one of these to loosen these. So I'm going to loosen this and this. And I'm going to then slide them in right here. Now because I'm working on the counter right here, I need to make sure I get this right. So I'm going to tighten and then pull. And that's in place. Now I'm going to do the same with this one, which right now will pull out. And tighten. Then I'm going to double check by looking on the side of it. And it looks like I've connected it correctly, so that's good. So I'm going to energize the board with actual power from the power supply. And hopefully this will power up. Okay, so the board is now powered. You can see power here. The way that we did it before, let me power this down for a second. So it's going to discharge in a second. I'll wait for the lights to go out. I'm going to plug this in. And then I'm going to power the board, and hopefully it'll show the same thing, but it's probably not going to. So it's only showing power here. It's not going any further. So what I think is going on is that there's a jumper that needs to be set that I got to research. And for safety's sake, I'm not going to do that at the moment because I don't have the actual information in front of me yet. So we're going to plug it in with the power supply. So this is going to take a second to actually power up. Let me put that there. And now this is going to take a few moments. Now if you've just recently joined, what we're trying to do is just sort out how to do this board. I don't have all the directions fully digested yet, so I'm trying to work out the pieces. We're currently starting with the CB1 board, and we're trying to load the actual firmware via SD to load the drive. So this is the actual operating system drive. So what I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to check the web browser again, and I'm going to see if we're actually connected to the network. If not, we're going to have to change that second password that's in the file to the correct one. And obviously I'm not going to show you the file again. If you want to rewind the video, you can see it. But it's more password security on my part than your part. So I'm just going to connected devices on my router. I'm probably going to have to log in a couple times again. Apparently I overdid the security on it. And so far I don't see it. So we'll have to give it a minute or two. Let me see if I can get a visual on the actual booting. but the MCU might be booting off a separate drive. So that might be the secondary issue, which is a possibility. So I'm going to scan the manual and we'll see what we get here. So if we go over to the manual, they might tell us which drive it is. It's probably way down here. Oh, they're telling you what to use. That's where the display can be connected. The camera. There's a drive right underneath here that I'm trying to figure out. This one says MCU, so it might be for just flashing. So let's see. Maybe I've got them confused. Of course, they're not telling me anything. Now, unfortunately, I can't pull the drive out when it's powered because it might do damage. But what we can do is figure out if it's the MCU by cheating. But I think the MCU is probably for flashing. And of course, now it's showing you how to load the other one. So I'm going to power this down, and we're going to do it the other way. So disconnecting the power to the board, waiting for the lights to go out. I'm going to take this and hopefully insert it here. It might have to be upside down. I have to take this out so I can get to it. And that's not inserting correctly, so it's inverted. So right now I have the board kind of secured to the table. So I have to kind of massage this into place. There we go. So that's inserted. So let's try this again. Maybe it'll work. And then power the board. Unfortunately, this is very iterative. So next thing we need to do is see if we can see it. So I'm going to see if I can get a display for it. So let me create a display. This might take a second. I'm going to add a camera so you can see, and it's actually display. And I'm going to say it's display capture 3. And let me see if I can change the input. Nope, it's not showing that way. So let me take care of that. Add a video capture device. Try a second one of these. There we go. So we are doing it correctly now. So it's booting and it just flashed by. So I don't know if it's going to connect to the actual network yet. We'll find that out in a second. And then there's a special password which I always forget, which is like CB1 or something. So unfortunately I'm going to have to scan for it real quick here. Hopefully it's down near the bottom. So let's see. We can SSH into it. That means that I can find out what the password is, but it might be on the next page, which is awesome. Or they gave it a new one. Let's see, IP name, fluid, main sale, CM4, it's talking about a different board. That's not going to help. So currently this is what the display looks like. So we've got it to boot. So essentially we're now actually loaded for the operating system on this drive down here. It's not this one. This is for flashing the MCU, which is over in here. So what I need to figure out is what it looks like on the network. So I need to go back and check the network yet again, which I know is super interesting from your perspective. So basically I'm doing a refresh of the network to see what's going on and if a new device is actually there. Then we can enter through the web browser if that's the case. Now it looks like there might be a new device or there might not be. So 1, 2. So far I'm seeing 3 devices, but those are things that are currently in use on my network. So it's not showing up. So what I'm going to have to do is reach back into the file and add the second login. Or reboot and see if it works. But that way I can show you the boot again. So I'm going to take over to this screen and show you the boot real quick. So I'm going to power it down. It'll go offline. Now I'm going to power it back up so you can see the boot sequence. And then eventually I'll pop out the drive and we'll try it out. Now for those that don't know, I can't see what's going on in the chat right now. And if you're leaving tips, which I'm hoping you are, thank you very much. There's also a Patreon link in there if you're interested in joining. So this is going to boot. I'm going to double check one more time to see if I can see it on the network. If not, then I'm going to have to go back into the configuration file that I showed edited earlier and add the router name and password or passphrase for the router a second time. And this might have to be because their image is set up this way for their configuration. I don't know why they do it this way, but obviously it loaded here. So let me double check the router. I'm guessing that I'm not going to be able to see it. So the reason that I'm booting twice is sometimes it needs to prepare the second time. And that's why I'm checking the router. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to see it. Or I've got the router name wrong, which could also be the possibility. So what I'm going to have to do is power this down. Let me see if you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take it back over to the desktop. Power it down. I'm going to pop out the drive and I'm going to place the drive over in here and then place this back on the computer. And this part I'm not going to show you, but I've showed you part of it already. Essentially what I need to do is I need to log into this drive and I'll tell you what I'm doing in the actual abstract. I'm going to system config and I'm adding the name of the router again because I may have gotten it wrong, which is possible because there's multiple routers running. So I need to basically add that in. And we'll try that first. And if that's not the case, then we'll try it the other way, because all I'm doing right now is I'm assessing the board. So let's see what you can see right now. You can see the board, so I'm going to slide this back in. And I'm going to power the board back up as soon as I reconnect this. And I'll change it to the image where you can see it booting. So this is where we currently are. It's powering up. This will show a screen, which it does. And hopefully I'll be able to connect to the network. I doubt it, but we'll see. Problem is I've got 3 or 4 routers running. So you're seeing a test router. So hopefully this will come up pretty quick, and then we can proceed further. Now I think it's got Moonraker on it, but we'll find out as soon as the screen comes up. So there's a blank screen for a few seconds while it's booting, and I'm actually showing you the HDMI output. That's why it's blank right now. So let me change it to something you can see. So this would be the desktop at the moment. I'm going to go over to the router and see if I can see it. And of course the router is super quick. And I do see it now. So the address of it is 192.168.1.5. So this will bring us to Moonraker. And so now the next issue is we need to find out what the actual name of the actual config is. So inside here we're gonna have to go to, wow, okay, so it's slightly different configuration than I'm used to. So what it's doing here, it's saying include mainsail, and then it's saying point to this file. So it's going to be generic big tree tech XXX whatever. So if we go back over here, we don't even see the file yet. So we've got to add it in. So what we're going to do is we're going to say create a file, and we'll name it. Now it's going to get kind of weird for a second. Let's see if I can find it. I'm trying to find an easy place to access it. So let's go over here. We're going to use one of these two file names. So I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to copy the text. Then I'm going to go back over to it. I'm going to paste the name here and create it. So that's going to be our configuration file. And then this one's going to be pointing to our configuration file. So I'm going to paste it right here. So that's done. So I have to save that. Still not going to work. But then we're going to go over to this file. And we're going to copy it right here. We're going to go back over into here. We're going to go to this file instead, which is right here, and we're going to paste that information. So we've just pasted the sample configuration file, and we're going to save and reboot. This is still not going to work because it needs to know what it's pointing at. In order for that to occur, we've actually got to go into a TerraTerm session. Let me make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. So I'm going to have to go TerraTerm. And I'm going to have to try and connect. It's going to fail right away. So we got to give that a second to fail. Oh yeah, there it goes. Connection timed out. So let me try that again. TerraTerm. It's actually 1.5 SSH, which is secure shell. The port's 22. And then we're going to say OK. Now it's going to ask if we want to connect. I'm going to say continue. Now I don't know what these are off the top of my head, so I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to have to go to the Marlin configuration. Or not Marlin configuration, excuse me, the configuration for Big Tree Tech, and I made notes on this someplace. So I'm scanning for my folder for the Manta. I want to see if I put it in there as notes. Looks like I didn't. Didn't put it there either. That's awesome. It's been forever and a day since I've done this. So maybe it's in my documents. So Manta notes. And my notes are terrible. Awesome. There's not a lot in my notes there, but I have more than one thing. So CB1 install. Here we go. So it's BIQU for both. So this is going to be the same as this. And apparently I can't paste the second time. So BIQU. And then I'm going to say OK. And hopefully it logs in, which it did. So now we're at the point where we can actually go to Klipper and see if we can do this. So we're going to go back to Klipper and we're going to do the installation. So this is where it gets weird again. So we're going to skip this step for the moment because we think it's installed already. We're just going to jump to the configuration folder and we're going to do a make config. If this works, then we know we don't need to do this step. If it doesn't, then we need to do this step. So let's paste it. You have to hit enter on the second one. And it does work. So now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find out what our board is. So I'm going to scroll down, right click or right arrow, and I'm going to find the board. So at this point, I want to say it's one of these two. They've changed it around or something. No, it's this one right here, STM32. So we know what it is there for board type. Now we have to pick the actual model type. So we have to scroll down and see if we can find the G0B1. And where I'm getting this information, just in case you don't know, is right here. So STM32 G0B1. That's what we're doing currently. So G0B1. Then we're going to go down here and it says bootloader offset is 8 kilobytes, I believe, for the bootloader. So let's go back and check. And of course I go to the wrong thing. So it says that's what it is. So we're going to have to do the clock next, which is 8 megahertz for the crystal in the clock. So let's see if it's even in here. So that's good. So let's see, communication interface. Okay, I don't see the clock, but maybe it's back and I just went by it. So let's click on low level option. That's not it. GPIO pins we don't have to worry about. But I'm looking for, well, the clock is right there. So let's uncomment that. Maybe I just didn't see it. Okay, so that's where the clock is, right here. So technically we might not need to set that, but I'm just showing you that. So we could possibly leave this off, but I'm going to turn it on for the moment just to see if that works. So what we're going to have to do now is leave. So we're going to hit Q, and then we're going to say Y for yes. And we, in theory, just changed the config file. So that should be saved. If you want to double check it, you can always up arrow and go to the make config menu, and you can see it's already set. So Q, and you don't have to save because there's no changes. Now we need to do the make. So down here, this will build our configuration. Hopefully it doesn't fail. So we'll type make and press enter. This will basically compile, or as it says, compiling right here, and it's building all the pieces up. So for those that just joined, thanks for tipping if you are. or joining the Patreon down below. It's in the description. It's greatly appreciated. It helps offset the cost to make these tutorials. And obviously it pays for me and my time live streaming, which is of great help because that way I can get equipment to actually show you this better. But I do have to say that the actual CB1 board and the Manta E3EZ were provided by the Big Tree Tech Corporation. They sent them to me as samples. So now that we're done here, we actually have to pull this file and put it on a disk. So to do this, I need to log into this a different way now. So I need to use FileZilla, and this is my way of grabbing information. This might fail when I first open it or not. So its host is 192.168.1.5. Username is BIQU. Password is BIQU. Port is 22. So quick connect. We're going to say that we are okay with this. And now we can see these folders. Now I got to remember where it is, so I'm going to guess Klipper to start. It's the out folder because over here it said out. And we can see that it's klipper.bin. So we're going to copy this over to our downloads folder. So let me make sure I get to my downloads folder. There we go. And just drag it across. So essentially what we've just done is put the bin file over here. So now what we need to do, I know there's so many steps, this is kind of annoying, but this is the way it works. We're in the actual downloads file. So I'm going to make a copy of this so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll put the other copy up on Patreon for people that want to grab it easily. But we're going to rename this to what it should be, which is firmware.bin. And that's before it loads. After it loads, it usually gets renamed to firmware.cur in capital letters. So I need to put this on a drive and power down the system to do this. And then we'll power down the system. It should happen instantaneously, but we're going to see if it actually worked. But before we do that, we're going to check to see if one already exists on the actual board and they didn't load it and not tell me. So we're going to go back over here for a second and we're going to go over to the installation. And down here is the step to actually check. So I'm going to copy this command and I'm going to paste it right here and hit enter. So currently it looks like there might be something there. I personally don't trust it because that's the default name usually. So I'm going to load the firmware in my case. But we can try this real quick. I can copy that, which I just did. And we'll see if it connects by going over here to the browser, which is right here. We're going to have to go into our configuration file, find the MCU, which is right here, and paste the name. So it's going to be the path to where it is seen, which is this right here. And then we'll save that and close. Now it's still not going to connect. It's probably going to have another issue. So let's try restart. And it says printer is not ready. Klipper host is attempting to connect. Please retry in a few moments. So let's try restart firmware. And then restart again. I have a funny feeling it's not going to work, only because the name is kind of clear that it won't work. So while that's going on, I'm going to put that on a thumb drive, or excuse me, an SD card, and load it up. But I need to grab an SD card, And for the SD card, I have to remind people how to do this, because we've had a lot of trouble with a lot of people in either Marlin or in Klipper on how to do this. So let me take it over to the desktop for a second so I can show you. So here's the drive we're going to use to load the MCU, which is over in here someplace. Hopefully. It might be under the board, I don't know. But we have to format this drive as FAT32. Oop, you can't see what I'm doing. Sorry. Here's the drive. Let me get something non-metallic. This is the MCU where you would load this for the MCU, which is probably in here or underneath the board. I'm not sure exactly where it's located yet. But the MCU is actually the processor for this board. It's probably underneath, but don't quote me on that because I need to look. So I'm going to place this in a thumb drive, just like I did with the other one, right here, and place this in the computer. Then we're going to go over to the desktop of the computer. I'm going to click on the drive that it's on. In this case, it's the D drive again. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Format Drive. Now, as you can see right here, the capacity is about 8 gig, even though it says 7.43. It's FAT32, and I would say do 1024 or 1048, but it's defaulted to this, so we'll try it first. So let's go back in there so you can see it right here. If it doesn't work, go to the lower one, which is this one, but probably don't need to do that. So let's give this a quick format. It's going to close on you for a second, then it'll open. So we'll close that. We'll go back over to the drive. You might not be able to see the drive right away. Normally I unplug it and replug it, but we're going to go to Downloads. The file that we renamed from Klipper.bin to firmware.bin that we made a copy of, we're going to send this to the D drive. So it's there now. So we're going to have to power down the system. So let's transition back over here. I'm going to remove the power. So it's going to de-energize. I'll pop the drive, pull out the card, place it in here. Now this will flash in a fraction of a second. So if you give it 5 seconds after you power it up, it should be flashed. And we can check that, and I'll show you how in a second. So let's power it up. Hopefully that flashed. So right about now it should be good. So let's unplug it. Let's pop out the drive and we'll check it. Now if it didn't flash, there might be an extra step or two that I don't know about, which is possible. So let's take a look real quick. So if I go over to the desktop of the computer, go to the drive, it flashed. So it says firmware.cur in all capital letters. That means it worked, allegedly. So now we can power up the actual system. So let's go back over to the desk. I'm going to plug it in now and just let it boot because the MCU is already flashed. And this is obviously going to take a second, so I'll show you the boot screen in a moment. So it's booting. We know where it is on the network. We're just going to go to the web browser, refresh the page, and then we're going to log into it in the TerraTerm session, and we're going to do that command that we did previously to find the port ID, which is this, in the actual TerraTerm session. And then what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to take a break for about 5-10 minutes to prepare the next install, which will be, we'll do the Raspberry Pi, which is with the eMMC. The other Raspberry Pi is exactly the same as this install, except with the Raspberry Pi image. So let's go over to the computer for a second. On here we need to open up TerraTerm. It's this IP address. 22 is the port number, secure shell. We're going to continue. We're going to do BIQU, and we're going to say OK. Now we're back in. We're going to paste that command, not that one. Sorry. This one. And hit enter. Now you can see it looks drastically different, I hope. So we're going to copy this whole line. So right click. And obviously it pastes it automatically when it doesn't need to, but now it's in the buffer. So we'll go back over to mainsail, try again. It's not connecting still, so we'll go to here. Then we're going to have to find our file, which is right here. Find the MCU, which is right here, and paste it. Then we're going to save it, and we're restarting automatically. And it looks like we're connected, and now it's shutting down. So something else is now occurring. So let's try restart. I know there's going to be a failure that we need to look at, but I'm not sure if we have to restart the actual whole thing. Okay, so there is an issue that's occurring. It's not letting us see it. My assumption is it's minimum temp or max temp. So it thinks it needs a thermistor. So I'm going to have to power down the system to do this and figure out where the thermistor goes. So let's go over here and see if we can get a picture of what we're looking for. I think I had it open at one point. Here we go. So we're looking for T0, or there we go, thermal hot end 0, which is this one. It's expecting the thermal hot end 0. And it's expecting the bed. So that would be this one for the thermistors. So it's these two slots, and they're located right here on the board. So for safety, I'm going to power it down. So let's do that real quick. Let me bring you over to the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully the camera won't get wonky on us. So first things first, I got to power down the system. So I'm going to pull the power cord. Let that power down. Then I'm going to take one thermistor that I have floating free here, and I'm going to plug it into here. And I'm going to do that with the other one as well. This is my way of faking out a whole printer so you can see what I'm doing on the desk. So I'm plugging in two working thermistors that you can see right here. And I'm pushing these off to the side. So I'm going to restart the board now. And for those that are donating on PayPal and or Patreon, thank you very much. I can't see what's occurring right now because I can't see the chat. Apparently there's a small change in Restream that I need to figure out where that is. So I'm going to show you that it's booting again. I know this is kind of boring to watch, but then we'll go back over to the main screen, which is right over here. And we're going to try this again. It's trying automatically apparently. So try again. It's probably going to take a second. Hopefully that was the issue that we saw. Otherwise there's something else we got to fix. And I forgot what it is. Okay, it looks like it's getting closer. Let's see, Klipper service is running. So something else is going on now. Let's try this again. So apparently it had to initialize a little bit longer. So these are the thermistors that I hooked up. They tell by color which is which. So heat bed is blue, extruder is red. So I don't know why the red one's not showing up, but that's fine. But it's seeing it up here. They're both in an off state. So let me show you how we can test this real quick. So let me see if I've got the actual video that you can see in this. There we go. So I'm going to go over to the board. Obviously you're going to see something happen. I got to move this down and over so that you can see what I'm doing at the same time. So I'm going to pick up a thermistor and I'm going to pinch it with my finger. I don't know which is which, but you'll see that the temperature of my finger is changing the temperature right here. And you can see that now we can see the red for the other one being the extruder, which is down below it. So they're running on the same temperature. That's why we couldn't see it. So if I let go of this, it should start to cool. If I grab this one and do the same thing, it'll start to curve up as well. So that's how we understand if the thermistors are functional. So now that we got that sorted out, that's a basic setup configuration. Obviously it took me longer than normal because I didn't test it out beforehand. So I had to figure it out on the fly. So my apologies if it took longer than one had thought to see that occur. But that essentially is the configuration of the actual setup up to the point of getting, in this case, mainsail functional. Sometimes I interchangeably call it Moonraker. Now there's also updates in here I think that you can do. Obviously I'm going to re-record this as an install video for you guys. That'll be much more fluid than I'm currently doing. But the reason I did this is to show you how I learned how it works. So let's see if we can find some interesting things here. There might be an upgrade screen someplace in here. Upload a print, emergency stop. What do we got here? Let's see, webcam. I'm not going to do the webcam today just because I have to pick the board up and move it around. But those are actually on the board as if they're a Raspberry Pi. And you may have to activate them in an actual file on the actual operating system. But I didn't want you guys to see me struggle with that. So I don't see any upgrades in here. But we can do those in the background for Raspberry Pi. Or excuse me, in Unix or Linux. In this case Linux. Where it's just an, I think it's update get, but obviously someone's going to correct me. But there's a way to do it under the hood in TerraTerm as a IP session. And we can change the password to the operating system as well because you want to have a different admin password. But I've shown that in other videos. So I really don't want to go into that. I want to see, here we go. This might be the place where we can do uploads, but first I want to test end stops. And I'm going to do this with the board powered up. But I'm going to be very careful. Normally I power it down. So I need to find an image of the board, which is right here, and I need to find an end stop like the x-axis. So as you can see, there's a y end stop, there's the ET0. They probably have it in the same area, so let's trace it over. So I'm guessing it's this one. That's Z. So X is in blue, which is right here. And then E0 detect, that has to do with extruder detect. That has to do with the run out of filament. That's a detector that you can enable here, but I'm just trying to show you end stops. So this is probably going to work right out of the gate when I show you this, but we need to know where ground and signal is. So this pin is ground, this pin is signal. As you can see, the one to the right is 5 volts, ground, and then it's, well, it's this one to the right, 5 volts, ground, and then the actual signal pin, which is PC5. So this is what we're looking for. And so we have to go over to the board and do this. And I have to be very careful how I do this so I don't cook anything. And I'll show you what's going on. Let me actually show you that first. If we go over here, we can type in the G code to check the actual end stop for the console by typing M119, and this will tell us our G codes. And right now it says everything is triggered. That means there's nothing connected. So let's go over to the actual desk. And if the camera blinks out, I'll turn it back on. I need to grab an end stop. So I know I have some here, I just have to get them. I just don't know which drawer I'll put them in. Let's see, that's not it. Sorry, I've got about 5 drawers of equipment right behind me. And then I have an end stop someplace in one of these drawers. And it's not the end stop I want to use. That's awesome. So the end stop that I have needs to be actually configured. So I'm going to grab a different one that does the same thing. And I'll show you what this is. This is only 2 pins. So red is going to be actually signal in this case, and ground is going to be over here. So I think it was this one. We're not going to click it right away. I'm going to plug it in though, and hopefully we won't see any smoke. Then we'll go back over to the actual configuration. This is the end stop, by the way. Let me just push it over here. And let's see what it looks like on the actual computer. So if we do M119 and enter, it does say open now, so we know it's working. So I'm going to put this so you can see both. Let me move this over so you can see it better. So I'm going to click the end stop with my finger to test it. So I'm going to hold this down, and I'm going to go over here and type M119 and enter. So now it's triggered. Let's let it go and do the same command again, M119. So we know the end stop's working. If we wanted to change or invert this so that it was different, which sometimes will occur if you're doing like sensorless homing, what you're going to do is you're going to go into here. This is the configuration. This is your X end stop. If you wanted to invert it, making the logic the opposite, you do this and then save, and I'll show you what happens. So it reloads in a second, hopefully. It's telling me to do well, it's automatically doing an update right here in the background, which kind of sucks because I didn't ask it to do that yet. So let's try this M119 again. So now it says triggered. Now if I click it with my finger, it'll say open. Sometimes there'll be cases where you need to flip the logic. So that's the mod that I'm doing to show you that and how it works. That will be relevant for advanced steppers. In this case, let me move this over so you can see what I'm doing. The exclamation point is what I added to cause the logic to be flipped. So I'm taking it back out, and then I'm going to hit save. Let me just move this over. and then let's see what happens. So we're going to go back to the dashboard, M119, and then enter, and you see it's back to open. If we clip it or click it with our finger and do it again, which is M119, enter, you can see that it's back triggered. So that's how you flip the logic of the actual end stop. But apparently this wants to do an update on me, which I didn't expect. Over in here, it's automatic. Down in here, it says up to date, so I guess those all completed. Or I wasn't paying attention. And then you can see there's the MCU. This is the processor on the actual board that's functioning right now. And then we have the host OS. In this case, we're actually using Bullseye. And then we're loading, obviously, these other things here. So what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to take a small break. But I need to find that screen. So give me a second to see if I have a break screen. Or you can tell people I'm on break for a couple minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you on this screen for the moment, for the desktop. You guys can discuss. I'll be back in a minute. Unfortunately, I don't have a away screen. I accidentally deleted it, it looks like. Let me just double check. Maybe I do have it and I just don't know. Hang on, I can modify this screen. Just need to add something right here. Text file. BRB. And then I need to change this so it reads something different. So I'll give this about 5 to 7 minutes. I just need to run and pay the water bill. So let's see. Output timer. No, that's not it. It's been a while since I've done this, so give me a second to figure it out. Scripts. Tools, scripts. There we are. So I'm going to say I'll be back in 8 minutes. It'll count down. I got to rename something real quick here. Or maybe just put BRB over it. Let's see if that works. No, I'll hide the other one. Give me a second to find it. There it is. And let me see if this works. Hang on, I gotta move something over here. This might be kind of goofy. Well, let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, just let people know. I'll be back in a second. So I'm going to transition this over. Yeah, that looks horrible, but I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back. Let's see, I'm gonna move over to the desktop for a second. Hopefully the camera's on. And it's not. So, I'm gonna unplug the power. And we're gonna do the other way to do this. So I'm gonna pull this out. Yank this out. And this is gonna be a little bit weird. So I'm gonna pop out just this. And to pop it out, I gotta be careful because I don't want to destroy the pins. So I'm gonna use this little wedge to lift it out. That way no electronics get damaged down in here, hopefully. And lift it out. So we're going to put in the eMMC version, which is this one, and we have to get the antenna on the inside again, line it up, and push it down. Now to load this, we have to actually set a jumper. So first let me put the antenna on. Now, the reason I know this is I've done this 2 or 3 times if you've seen my videos on my channel, but I'm having trouble seeing. The antenna I'm going to use is different, so it's going to be this one. So now we're going to be doing it through jumpers that I believe are up in here. And I believe it's 3 and 4 for the jumpers. So to do this, we've got to go over to the desktop again and find the manual and scroll back up to find it. So it's going to talk about the jumpers. It's probably going to suggest what to work with, but here they are. So it's 3 and 4, I believe, have to be capped. Then we have to run a special program, which is RPI boot, which you can download. And I'll place the image on the Patreon for the actual operating MCU so that you can pull that from there if you join the Patreon for the actual firmware for this. So let me see if I can do that real quick. So if I go over to Patreon, I'm going to add a new document. So it's probably going to have to be this. Let's see if this works. Attachment, upload. So the firmware will be this. I'll put it here, and then I'll put, let's see, I gotta put a title in here. So this will be firmware for BTT Manta E3EZ, and let's see, what are we going to say? Built the firmware during live stream for BTT. Let's see, Manta E3EZ as firmware.bin for MCU flash. And then I'm going to publish this to the Patreons only. and that way you'll be able to actually download it. So the post is now live, the file's right there. So that might make life easier for you guys. As you can see, I have my Patreon right here and patrons. So I'm going to close out of that and let's do this. So I have to put a jumper cap on 3 and 4, I believe, which is right here. So these two right here. So let's go back over to the actual camera. I'm going to grab a jumper cap and hopefully put this in the right place. So one jumper here, and that's so this can boot, so we can actually image it automatically. And the second one right there. So this is going to show up as a device when we're connected via this one. So what I need to do is figure out a way to connect to that, and it might not be easy because I might not have the cable. So let's see if I can find the cable. Otherwise, I'll have to do this in an actual video. Let me see if this works. Nope. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to find. Normally I have several on hand, but it's been a while. So let me see if I've got one in my drawer. Seems like all I got is power cables these days. Well, I have an alternate method that we can load it. So what we can do is we can drop it into here, and it's going to be the same thing, except on this one it's a switch. So it's on and off, I believe. And this will have a different connector right here that I actually have on hand. So let's see if I can actually plug this in and if it powers. Yeah, it does. So I'm going to pop this out and do it this way for now because I don't have the actual connector on hand. So I'm going to place this in here hopefully correctly. Hopefully that's not backwards. And I'm gonna have to stick this down on the surface just because I'm trying to avoid damaging anything. So I'm gonna basically stick it to the surface and then plug it in right here. Now I have to turn it on here. It's the same process as this, except that they put a switch, I believe. And let's see what happens. So it does actually register. So we're going to go over to the actual computer. I'm going to then type, I already have this loaded, RPI. And this is the program. You can find it online. Now it's setting up the drive so it looks like a regular hard drive. So now it appears, so I can go over to here and choose my storage device, and it's actually one of these two. So hopefully if I power it down we can double check to see which one it is, because I might have a drive inserted, or I can pull the drive that's inserted in the computer and then try this. There we go. So that's the one, but we need a different build. So what we're going to go with is fluid pi. So here's fluid. So we need to find it. So we're going to do a download. I just need to figure out where it is. So download fluid pi releases. We're going to click on the zip folder and pull this to the computer. This is going to take a few moments. While that's doing that, I'm going to grab some liquids because obviously I get cotton mouth. And essentially we're going to be flashing directly to the board. At least now you know why I do this in simple tutorials that look fluid, pardon the pun. And for those that are joining on Patreon or tipping on PayPal from the description, thank you very much. I can't see it at the moment. So as soon as this is pulled down, what we'll do is we'll start to load it. Let me check the other screen here, see how many people are actually on line here. So let's see, analytics. Wow, there's a bunch of people online today. So what we're going to do right now, as soon as this completes being pulled down, we may have to extract it. So let's see what happens as soon as they get pulled into the computer. It's probably in a zip file, at which point we'll then go to here and we'll point it to that after we extract it if we need to. Excuse me. Obviously I'm uploading at the same time I'm downloading, so the speed is a little slow. Normally I do this one way during a video. So as soon as we get this actually pulled in, which it looks like we're almost there, I hope, we can actually go further with it. Or maybe if I talk less, it'll actually download quicker. It's almost like watching paint dry. So this one should be a similar install as the one we did for the CB1, except it'll be packaged differently, but the actual communication that we saw that we did for the MCU will be exactly the same. So it should be in theory already active, but we're gonna have to swap the board over as soon as we're done imaging. So it looks like we've got about, what, 15 seconds? 14? And it looks like it's almost complete. There we go. So we'll go over to the folder. Now we have to go outside here, right click, extract all. Then we're going to extract. This is going to take a few moments too. And essentially we're opening up the image. And right now it looks like it's going to be somewhat large. Hopefully it's not 8 gigabits. So as soon as this finishes up, we'll actually point it to Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to then pick the image using Use Custom. We're going to go to Fluid Pi. We're going to click on the image, Open, and then we're going to write. Now we can do the same thing that we did over here, but we're going to have to do it again slightly different. So we're going to just leave it alone, but you can modify that if it weren't the supplicant file. So let's do a write. It's going to redo the actual image that's on there. So it's writing directly to the actual drive, being the eMMC memory. So as soon as this finishes, we'll power it down. We'll pop it out of the container that we're using to actually load it. And then we'll drop it back into the setup for the board, and we'll see what happens. Now this might show up on the network different, but there is one more step that we're probably going to have to do at the end of this now that I remember it, and that's setting the supplicant file on the board. So it's going to be inside memory. So this is going to be kind of weird for me because I'm going to have to actually open it up and look because I don't remember what the actual steps are, but we'll figure them out when we get to it. So now it's just waiting for this to finish. This might image slightly slower. Obviously, it's writing to a different type of media. And you can see it's 7%. But the install is going to be a lot simpler, and it'll boot quicker with eMMC, which is one of those things that everybody likes. And apparently I'm trying to read a comment, so give me a second here. And I'm opening up the wrong app on my phone. But apparently live streams are different from videos in that I don't have as much control over what I'm doing. Oh, someone's commenting on a video. Somebody is requesting to understand something better in one of the videos that changed due to Marlin changing the firmware. So I'm basically letting them know there's a Discord, which I'll show you right now, where people can actually ask questions. So this is the Discord. In general chat, you can ask 1,000 different questions, a bunch of different people in here, and a lot of people can answer them for you. I also obviously jump into the chat on occasion, so that's a good place to actually ask questions. Then we have Klipper over here where people actually do a lot of questions about Klipper, so that's a good place to actually ask questions regarding Klipper. And then of course there's BL Touch. People share their works right in here. And then I maintain this so that it's fast enough so that you guys can pass your files back and forth for firmware. But we're almost done with the firmware load. It's 24%, so hopefully not 3 times as long. And I just let this person know they can actually go to Discord to ask that question. So let me show you what the board's actually doing on the table. Hopefully the camera hasn't gone out yet. So right now it's flashing directly to this board through here. Normally it would flash through this one and then with these jumpers on, but I'm going to take these off for now because we're not doing it there. And then we'll take this board off and place it here when that becomes ready, which we're waiting on over here. And obviously it's taking a long time. For those that are tipping in the chat though, thank you very much. And also there's a Patreon in the description as well as where PayPal is if you desire to leave a tip. It's one of the ways to offset my costs in both time and materials, mostly materials. So unfortunately this is very slow and there's not much control I have over the actual speed at which this images. Normally I go in the other room and then come back in like a half an hour. I'm hoping to get this done within the next 20 minutes, not the actual image. But let's check out the directions for this real quick. So it would be over in here. I don't know if we can see in here. Maybe we can see there's any other releases. So this was released in July. The previous one to that, they're not showing here. Well, they're probably showing over in here. So July, February was the previous one. So they talk about known issues in the previous build. They don't know of any that are in here, but you can always check for issues right here. Excuse me. So they talk about different issues that occur. You can search through here by typing on anything that's opened or closed what the issue is. So if you do this and you hit enter, there are no issues on that subject that are open. But let's try menu config. Let's try that. And it shows the issue. So there are also ways to look for closed issues. And this will show you every single issue that's closed. So these are currently ones they've fixed, allegedly, but they might help you understand what a certain situation is. The other thing is if you go over to code, you can see different branches right here. This is usually used for development, but if you want to see an actual tagged build, you can click on this and it'll bring you to that actual build that you can pull and the information hopefully that's regarding that particular configuration. Obviously I haven't worked with this in a while, so I'm a little rusty, but I believe we're in here right now, which would be what we're pulling right now onto the actual board. We can double check though. You can see what the version was that we're using. So all we have to do now is wait on this wonderful thing to finish loading. And at least now you know why I record the videos and then splice and cut these so they're quicker. Normally what I do is I speed this up so that you guys don't have to see the whole entire thing run. Or I pause the video and wait for it to finish, then unpause it when I record. But this is why these are not good for live streams. because the steps take forever. That and one of my lights seems to be making a noise. But maybe while this is running, I can see if I can see what's going on with the chat, if there is anything going on with the chat, because let's see, real-time analytics. It doesn't allow me to see my own chat. That's awesome. Maybe there's another way to do this. Let's see, all sessions, overview. Chat messages. Chatters. Yeah, for some reason I can't see anything in chat. Not even messages. That's awesome. They used to have a thing where I could set up the actual chat. Let's see, settings. Social alerts. That's not allowing me to see it. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to do some research on this, because this doesn't work. They used to have a little chat dialog that I could click on. And I can't see it. But we're at 73%, so hopefully this will be set in a second. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you're not a subscriber, it'd be nice if you did, because then you can see when I'm doing something new. And unfortunately, this chat session, let me see if I can look in the video maybe. You might hear my sound.
Can we fix your...
Which I'm trying not to let you hear. But apparently there's an ad playing, so I muted it. Okay, I can see the chat. So let's see. Life in Bolivia. Hey, how's it going? I got somebody in Denmark. I'm a beginner and I'm learning. Thumbs up. Let's see. Me too. It's a bit confusing, but I think if you watch it for a few times, it will come together if you understand. I hope it works for me. Live stream makes things interesting. LOL. And then hiya. Yeah, so now I can see the chat, but I have to watch like you guys are watching. Normally they give me a chat window, but for some reason it's not there. But hopefully we'll get beyond this 85% that I'm seeing. You're seeing 84 from the YouTube side at the moment. There's something like an 8-second delay between me and you. But if you click on the show more, if you want to get that file that I created for the firmware.bin, that's accessible on Patreon for patrons. Yeah, on the phone it looks different, but if you're in a web browser, you can actually see the chat. Apparently the radiator heat's going on right now, so I'm hoping you guys don't hear the clicking. But looks like we're close. We're at 92%. 93%. And then I can show you the next step, hopefully. If I didn't smoke the board and just don't know it. But I gotta reach back into the board to configure something that I'm gonna have to do off screen, but I'll show you where the file is. But we're 4% away, and then it has to do a quick confirmation, I guess. One of these days I'll get a second board so that I can leave the setup the same for both my configurations. But these boards now go for, I think the lowest price I've seen is $116, but they can go upwards of $190 at the moment for the eMMC version of the board. Okay, it's verifying. This should be, in theory, quicker. Yeah, it's probably going to be about 150 more seconds to verify. And then hopefully the next steps will be quicker. But essentially it's the same process. If we go over to Klipper, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to do this command again because the MCU is already loaded. Once we know what the actual name is, we'll copy it out and put it in the file that we may also have to create. I have to see what the structure is. I also have to see what it looks like on the network, because it might have a different IP address, which I'm guessing it will, because it's a different actual device connecting to the actual router. Thus, it'll have a different, MAC address. And if you guys don't know what a MAC address is, it's essentially a unique identifier for your network interface card, either Wi-Fi or your NIC card. And that identifies the actual device that connects to your network. And the reason that you need a unique MAC is because if you have two of the same MAC on a network, which people will say is impossible, it is not, then both devices or one of the two devices will not work. And when I say it's not impossible, I've seen cases where it is, in fact, the same MAC address multiple times. But that was someone falling asleep at the machine that wrote the addresses. So they wrote the same address about 500 times. And no one probably uses those tools anymore. It was a parallel connection to a printer that was invented by a company I worked for where this had occurred. So this was back in 1999. But there is a way to fix it. Granted, you don't really want to fix it without telling your boss. Because let's just say engineers get upset when you fix their work. But at the moment, it looks like we're still going to be a ways out on this. So let me check on the chat, see if anything's new in here. Nope, nothing new yet. So people that are new to Klipper, it's a different type of firmware. that is more basic in a lot of reasons, in that you can point directly to what you want to do, and there are function calls that get it to function. So let me show you what the pins file looks like while this is going on, because this is getting kind of dry for all of us. The pins file in this case is right here. So what I mean by pins is each one of these pins right here, there's 8 of them. The one in the upper left hand corner is 5 volts. The one to the right is ground. Then you have a signal pin, which its pin ID, or if you want to associate this with something that you know, like a mailbox, it's the address of your mailbox. So it's PC15, which would be this pin right here. Then PC10 would be this pin. PC112 would be this one. Then PC11 would be this. Then this is 3.3 volts. And then this is ground. So that's what these pins are. In this case, they're SPI pins. So it's serial peripheral interface, and I guess it's version 3. So this is the way that they communicate over serial peripheral interface. There's also UART, but I don't know if I can see that on the board right away. But these will do UART, these will do UART, UART, or SPI. Then there's CAN bus, which is another type. And then over in here you have obviously PS on. If you trace this out, this tells the power switch that it's on. Either it powers it on or doesn't. I don't remember exactly what PS on is because I usually don't show you that. And then we have several fans around the board. So if you look over in this little green section, you can see that it's voltage in and then PA8. So essentially there's a signal pin and a voltage pin, and this will drive the actual fans through signal pins. And signal pins essentially are saying, at this pin, turn it on for this period of time and do something. And that's what almost all of this board is you have your power and then you have your signal. So you're creating a circuit by turning it on. Except in this case, it's voltage in and then ground. So that powers the entire board. And this one powers high-powered steppers. But I'm not going to show you how to do that, but the actual jumper connections for those are up in here. I don't suggest doing it if you're new to electronics. It's a great way to smoke your board, and you don't want to do that. Also, there's something new on this board. They've now added TFT. I don't even know if this works yet. So this might not be functional. Basically, it's a touchscreen display. And then there's only one EXP1 down in here. So these special displays may or may not work. Also, you have your thermistors, which we've already talked about. Your BL Touch, which is right here. Then you have your end stops. And you have your RGB. This would be like some kind of colored light that probably functions in an array of lights, being from 0 to 8 or 7. I'm still working on showing you guys this. It's not working the way that it should, so I've got to figure it out. But let's check to see if this is finished. Looks like we're pretty close. But let's go back over here for a second. If you want to see reference for communication or configuration, pardon me, for Klipper, you can always click on the reference communication configuration reference, pardon me, and it'll talk about each piece and how it is associated. MCU obviously is something that you need to know. This is the name of your board as it appears on the computer that you're using, be it CB1 or in this case Raspberry Pi CM4. We're using eMMC in this case, but this is going to take a second to configure. You can add a second board to communicate with and combine it as if it's one board. This is creating an extra MCU. I was going to do a video on this a long time ago, but there's not a lot of demand for it. It's kind of cool. You can take two boards and combine them as one, but with the new Big Tree Tech boards you can't do that, so I kind of avoid it. It's possible, it's just more setup, and I might lose a lot of people when I start to move it around. But this completed, so let me show you what we got to do for this. So I need to go over to the actual desktop and power down the actual board. So I'm going to disconnect this, reconnect this. Let me show you that real quick. So I'm going to disconnect this, reconnect this, and we're going to have to go through the same sequence again. So I'll go back over to the desktop, and I'm looking for RPI boot. I'll run that until it shows up as a drive, and we're essentially waiting for it to show here. So hopefully it'll work. So apparently it didn't. So let's see if we can see it in here. Can't see it there either. That's awesome. So give me a second to see what I did wrong here. I'm going to power cycle this again. Then I'm going to go over and run RPI boot again. And that time it looks like it worked. So here it is. So inside here now it appears like a thumb drive. We need to find a particular file and it's supplicant. So you can see it right here, it's fluid. So I'm going to open this up with Notepad++. Bring this over so you can see it. And we got to set up our actual router. In this case, it's going to be here. So I need to remove the comments for this. And comments are just a way so that it doesn't read something and hides it from being read. So we just removed all the comments. Then I need to put in my router name here, which would be right here, and then my password right here. So I'm going to do this off screen so you don't see it. Now you might see it save, but it's going to take me a second to type this because it's several things. And then I got to put in all the special stuff for this. But this should be, in theory, easier if I'm doing it right. So let me close that and save it. As you can see, it just updated. So I'm going to power down the board. So I have to go back over to the actual desktop. I'm going to turn it off, and then I'm going to pop out the board. So to pop out the board, I'm just going to use this and hopefully not damage the board. And then I'm going to place it inside of here. Then I got to connect this back in here again. Okay, so it's got the antenna over here. So I'm going to not power it with the screen this time, but I am going to power it with direct power again. So I'm going to plug this in. Hopefully you won't see any smoke. And it might not be powering up correctly. That's awesome. So what I'm looking for is lights on the board. Currently I don't see any, but it might be because the lights are in a different place on here. Or I've hooked something up backwards, which I doubt. Looks like it's okay at the moment. Or it's not fully seated, in which case we can power it back down. But I'm going to check first to see if I see it on my desktop. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a web browser with that session. You're not going to be able to see it while I'm doing this. So I have to go to here on my router. I'm looking for the device to show up. If it shows up, I'll share the IP address in the video for the device. But I've got to wait and see what happens. It usually boots in a couple of seconds. It's like 30 seconds to boot. But apparently my router's not playing nice at the moment. So I have to wait for it to catch up. And now I gotta wait again. My guess is that it's probably gonna be one higher than this address. So let's try this. If it shows up. Basically, I'm looking for the connected devices. And so far, it's not showing up. But it's showing an unknown device. So I might have to end it today if it doesn't show up. Or power it down and try it again. Let's give it one more try here. Or I mistyped the actual password when I put this together. So let me power this down, show you what I'm doing. Hopefully the screen doesn't go out. So this might not be seated correctly, or I damaged it. So yeah, it's not seated. That's super odd. Okay, let's try that again. And it's still not lighting up, which makes me nervous. But we'll give it one more try. It's probably a seating issue. And I'm guessing it's going to be this address. Let's give it about 30 seconds and see what happens. But at least you know one way to do this already. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, so let's try doing some troubleshooting. So, I'm going to power down the board. I'm going to pop it out of the board so you can see what I'm doing. and it's still not connected. That is super odd. So what's going on is this side of the board is not attaching. So my pins look relatively good, but they should fit right in here. They're not. So there's something occurring with this piece right here. So I possibly could have bent them and didn't know it, or it's the design of this board, or that's what I had to do. I just had to work it a couple of times. What makes me nervous about this board in the design is that this can be close to this and cause a short, which I really hate. So I'm going to try and stretch this over here. I'm just moving the antenna to keep the actual connector out of the way. Let's try plugging it back in and seeing if we get power. Okay, that looks better. So it was a connection issue on that one side. So let's go back over to the desktop. And we're going to try this again. This should only take a couple of seconds, in theory. And I'm going to check it to see if it shows up in a moment. So it's probably going to take about 30-40 seconds to boot, if it works. Now it could also be that I put in the wrong network password again for the router, in which case I've got to reconnect to the device and then figure that out. But it just showed up. So that number that I said for 6 is the one it is. So this is going to take a second to connect probably. This is Fluid Pi, by the way. And there might be another issue. Bad gateway. Awesome. Let's see if we can fix it. There we go. That was weird. So first things first, it needs to know what the configuration is. So to do that, we've got to go down and find the config, which is right here. And this is going to be slightly weird. So inside of here, we have to find where it's located. It's not in this file. So let's close out of that. So it's probably not in here either. So let's close out of this. And then webcam is probably not it. So I want to say that it's in here, and it's been a while since I've set this up, but we're going to have to reassign this. So what I'm looking for is the actual configuration. So it's G-code files is the virtual SD. So what we're looking for is the actual setup. And they left it out. So it's going to be slightly harder than normal. Pause and resume. So we could probably add it to this file. So let's give that a try. So I'm going to hit enter right here. And we're just going to drop it in here, see if it works. So go over to here. Copy this, go here, paste it right here. And I have to do Control P, I believe. or Control V. Let's save it and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't explode too much. Save and restart. Okay, unable to find. So we're gonna have to add this in. So we'll go over to here. I'm first gonna go to here and hit Control Z and see if I can take it out. Yeah, so it's allowing me to take it out. And what you gotta do is follow the prompts like it said. So save. It's going to say you need this file here, so we're going to have to create a file. So add a file, we're going to call it printer.config, CFG, and then we're going to go into this file and we're going to paste what we copied earlier. We're going to save that, and it's still going to have issues, but that's fine. So that error went away now. So now we need to know what the MCU is. So if we go back into here and we find the MCU, we'll just copy this section. So I'm going to do a Control X. I'm actually going to put it up here for simplicity. And then we got to log into the actual session. So we got to do Term again. We're going to change this to 6. Same thing as before. Continue. I'm going to type raspberry, and I think it's raspberry. It's been a while. It might be Pi actually for this, and that's what it is. So now we can go back over here. We have to go back to install. Find that command, which is right here. Copy it. Paste it. Plus enter. And that's our new MCU. So we're going to right click. Minimize this. Go back over to the FluidPy session, highlight this part, or actually I'll paste it down here so you can see it. It's serial colon space. That's what the new one is. If we want to hide the old one, we can always do a hash mark to comment it out. I'm just going to do enter for now and save and restart. And let's see what happens. So we got some issues. Warnings. So it probably wants these things in the file. So normally they're in here. But let's see if they're the same. So SD card, resume and pause, display status. So one of the things you can do is you can actually go over and find this information online. But what we're going to try and do is see if we can do it. So we're just going to add this label. I'm just going to copy it. This isn't the normal way to do this. It's been a while since I've done it. We're just going to add them right up above here. And then we can do the view documentation to find out what they are. So we'll save. Now let's see if we can do it from the other file. So that's one less thing that we have to worry about, I think. So we must specify. So let's go back over here and see if we can steal it from here, because this is what it's actually looking for. So we'll close, go in here, paste it, save and restart. Okay, so we need printer cancel macro. So I think that's also in the other one. So printer cancel, is right in here. So we got to copy this. So I'm going to have to do Control C. Then we'll do close, printer config, paste it, save and restart. Okay, so then we got another issue. Warnings found. So we have to do something with permissions, and it's probably going to tell us what to do. So we're going to have to go in and change the permissions. So let's see if we can do this just by copying it. So I got a backspace over here, right click, enter, enter. I have to put in the sudo password, which is raspberry. Press enter. And it's going to take care of that hopefully for us. So restarting Moonraker, we just changed permissions, I think. So we're going to try and reconnect. And now it works. So we already have the thermistors connected. So we can go to console now. Console's probably going to be in a different place. Right there. We can do M119 to see if it's similar. And it says that it's triggered, so let me turn the camera on so you can see that we're going to test it real quick. And then if you haven't seen how I do driver installs, there's actually a bunch of them that I've shown for a different Manta. The process is similar. Let me just bring this up so you can see. So I'm going to have to move this over. There we go. So I'm going to click this with my finger. And then I'm going to do M119 again. And it worked. Now I'll let it go, do the same again. And you can see that it works. So at this point, I think I've been going for 2.5 hours and I got to go move my car. I know that kind of sucks for you guys. But if I don't do it, then you're going to have me with a bunch of tickets. And it's going to get expensive. So if you guys are tipping in the chat and I'm not seeing it, thank you very much. Also, the Patreon is also in the part where it says show more. So you can also go over there and you can get the actual firmware already set up to install it. And then you can figure out what you want to do for your installs. So everyone take care, be safe. And I'll catch up with you later, either through a live stream or through a video. And of course, there's Discord where you can actually go as well and see either me or other people that are experienced in certain portions of the actual Klipper software, where they can walk you through how to set up certain things that I might not be able to show you during a video. So everyone take care, be safe, and have a good time.